Hey everybody, Christo here, your mining coach, and I am so excited to have you back this week. And if you're a visitor for the first time, welcome here to the Mining Coach podcast, where our job is to add maximum value to your mining career. So it doesn't matter really where you are in your mining career, whether you are also not a professional. And when I say professional, you not necessarily have a formal qualification or degree or diploma, but you just want to become the best version of yourself. You're in the right place. Our job is to add value to you, to share our experiences, to help you with what we've learned, and maybe, just maybe, and I'm sure there will be many cases where what we've learned and what we've experienced will add value to you and give you some guidance and some support along this wonderful journey, which we call mining. First of all, I just want to give a big shout out and a big thank you for the overwhelming support to our very first podcast, which was last week. And this is the second one. And it has been wonderful. The text messages, the emails, the personal messages, the phone calls. Thank you so much. It is awesome. It really helps us. It gives us sort of an idea that we are on the right track, and your feedback is super important to us. So yes, you can visit us at www.theminingcoach.com and you'll get some resources there, and you'll also able to give us some feedback and reach out to us on email. So thank you very much for joining us today. So yeah, we want to be your partner. We want to be your partner in improving yourself and the self-learning and the self-development. We want to be your partner whether you working out and whether you're out in the gym or running on the treadmill, whatever you do to relax and spend some time and invest in yourself. That's really what we want to do in this podcast. I'm just going to take a moment to recap what we spoke about last week. I shared a lot of detail about my early part of my career and how that all came about, how I got into mining. And the reason why the detail was shared is I know a lot of times, we don't share our vulnerabilities and what we're going through in our minds, in our lives, with maybe the very closest people in our lives, the inner circle. Those people know what's happening, and all the worries and all the concerns and the fears that we have as we start our careers. And I share a lot of that detail so that just one or two people that can associate with that. And today, we're going to do that as well. We're going to share a lot of detail in the sort of the second part of my career. And last week we spoke about doubting yourself, how I got into the mining game by accident, just getting a job and trying to pay off a bursary loan. And we also spoke about the value of balancing family and work, and the role of mentors and coaches. They are so super important. The key moment in my career where a mentor, a coach, a lecturer actually at the institution I was doing my diploma studies just helped me to make a very important decision, and it changed my life forever. We spoke about persistence, the willingness to grind and work hard, and building your self-belief. And that sort of covered what we spoke about last week. Today, I'm very excited because today we're going to go a little bit deeper into sort of the mid-management level, so up to manager level. And we're going to talk about how safety incidents changed me and my thinking and my care for people. We're going to talk a little bit about further studies and our fellow colleagues and the criticism I received from them, how that shaped me, and how I made changes to my own, approach with people and leading teams, and also just developing myself throughout the process, because it is all about continuous development. Even now, having been in this game for 25 plus years, I really want to carry on learning. I'm a student for life. It's my philosophy of deep learning and continue to grow and develop. And even in this phase, we'll talk about that sort of development. Talk a little bit about team dynamics and the value of experienced members in your team and leveraging those skills and knowledge. And then an intervention with the GM, a key point in my life as well, how that shaped me. And finally, also, we're going to, in this whole second podcast, we're also going to touch on the fact that I wanted to quit mining again. Yes, I'm absolutely sure that I'm not alone in this, and more than one of you have gone through a period in your career where you wanted to quit this job or what you're busy with. So yeah, we'll touch on that. So we'll take a quick break, and then I'm going to get straight into this second podcast, and I'm really, really excited about sharing this with you. Okay, we are back. Thank you. We've just touched on the fact that I have, on the first podcast, I shared with you that I got to the point where I actually managed to get my degree and graduate at the age of 30 as a mining engineer. And so we moved from that stage, we moved to a very small, very, 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 very small mining town. I think there was 125 houses in this mining town, so in the middle of nowhere. And I got a job as a senior shift supervisor. It's sort of, the plan was immediately that I would step into a mining superintendent role as quickly as possible. And in that first couple of months, I started getting to know the mine. It was an underground mine, and there was a incident where my very first experience with, call it unethical behavior, took place, where I received a phone call on a Saturday afternoon that a person was found deceased at in an underground area that was supposed to be in my area of responsibility. I didn't even know that this was my area of responsibility. But a long story short is there was a whole inquiry and an investigation of what happened, and this was an illegal miner, or a person that was involved with illegal mining of stealing copper underground. And I think my very first exposure to how this incident was sort of, the buck was passed back to me, and I saw how our leadership didn't behave ethically and wanted to, in a way, sugarcoat or play down the realities of this massive underground area that was not barricaded off, and people had access to that, and anybody could go there. And that was a defined moment in my life in terms of safety, where I realized there's a reason why you block off or barricade off old areas, because you don't want people to unnecessarily be in that area. You want people to, when they just get themselves lost underground and they get to a point where they don't know where to go, there's at least a barrier of some sort that tells them you shouldn't go in here. And this was a very defined moment in my life. And the second sort of safety incident was a very traumatic one, where one of my colleagues was killed in a horrific accident underground, and it was actually cut up in 3 pieces. And myself and the doctor of the mine went to the site, and the team was absolutely traumatized, understandably so. And I helped actually the doctor to get this colleague of ours into a body bag and deal with this very traumatic incident. And it was, again, a defining moment in my career where I realized that it is super important to have some safety measures in place, and why crews need to understand the why of certain rules and regulations of procedures, and why those are in place. And I guess we all know that a lot of the mining regulations and processes and procedures and code of practices and standards are there to protect people because they were written in blood. Somebody has paid either with their life or a limb, or some way was harmed by an event. And that's why these rules are there, because they were written in blood. And it was once again a turning point in my career where I realized the importance of a supervisor to actually take accountability and responsibility for the area that you're appointed in. and really be diligent at what you do and your inspections and the reason for your position as a leader, as a supervisor, and your knowledge, and the importance of raising a hand when things are not okay, and when the people don't have, you either don't have the budget or you don't have the means to create a safe environment. It is it is important to understand. And for me, I started realizing how exposed in a lot of ways the managers and the GMs are if people take chances and they take shortcuts. And when the training and the education that we do and the coaching that we do underground, if that's not properly done, then people don't know what they don't know. And in a lot of cases, we have a turnover of people. There's always people going on retirement. There's always, whether you're in a build-up mine where, the mine is busy expanding, there's new people coming in, they don't know the history. I realized very quickly the importance of making sure people understand the why. I remember a specific day, and I've told this story many, many times after this event. There was a day I was walking with a shift supervisor underground, and now I already have received a promotion as mining superintendent. I was now mine overseer, and I had quite a large area of responsibility. It was over 500 people that I was responsible for, and I had like 7 or 8 shift bosses reporting to me. And I was walking with this one shift boss underground, and we saw some issues that had to be resolved. And I got very frustrated with having to explain to this person again, why is this not acceptable, and why do we have to do it in a certain way? And super frustrated, to say the least. I was very agitated. And then, and I can't remember exactly when it was in that week, or whether it was in the changeovers after I came out from underground, or I was doing, I don't know, contemplating what happened. And the penny dropped for me to understand that your job as supervisor, as leader, is to tell the same story 1,000 times over, if it needs to be, because maybe the person that you are sharing the why of a certain standard, or the why of a procedure, or a why of safety steps to be taken, maybe it's the very first time that they hear about the why. Excuse me, I had a sneeze there. And maybe that's the very first time they hear the why, the very first time that they hear about the blood that was spilled. And it's our jobs as supervisors to inform people. And if you have to tell the story 1,000 times with the same passion, the same energy, the same enthusiasm, so that people can understand why we're doing certain things in a safety way, they will get it. They will change their behaviors. You will influence them. There's no doubt in my mind. So in this period of becoming a mine overseer, it was a very interesting and a dynamic period in my life, because I was still the youngster among the few that was there. I think we were 7 in total at the mine, of mine overseers or mining superintendents. It was a fairly big mine. And I was sort of the outsider, because I was the only one with a degree as a mining superintendent. And some of my colleagues were significantly older than me, which is a common problem that I guess a lot of you face, that some people are many more years more experienced than what you are, and you come in as sort of a threat for them, because they realize that you may become their boss one day. And it's a challenge always to be promoted at the same place. And I specifically remember the one person one day sitting me down, and he was very old school, old style type of, command control person. And he told me, in certain terms, that I'm going to be a failure. There's no ways that I'm going to make it as a mine overseer. You don't tell me stuff like that. And I took it as a challenge, and I really made the effort of developing relationships and showing my colleagues that are now my colleagues that I've got what it takes to be a mine overseer. However, that didn't come without its pains, because at the same time, the bigger company, that's quite a big international company, and this mine was one of their mines, and I was sent. I was privileged to be sent on a management development program with a business school, and it's like a mini MBA. And every 4 to 6 weeks, you would go off and travel quite a long distance, because remember, this town is quite remotely, so it takes you about 5 or 6 hours driving just to get to a place where you can go and attend lectures for that week. So every now and then, I'm away for a week at the mine, and my team had to carry on operating and doing their production and doing it safely while I was not there. And every time I came back, there was a lot of things that didn't happen, or a lot of balls that were dropped in, and some of those being crystal balls that sort of caused a whole lot of havoc. And I got so frustrated with that. And fortunately, there was one very good, experienced mine overseer that was in charge of the mine's optimization studies and stuff. And he had a lot of respect from the others. And he was also a very good mentor and a coach to me. And we sat down, and I explained to him my challenges, and I actually asked for help. And I mentioned that in the first podcast as well, that it's so important to ask for help. And I remember sitting down with him and explaining to him what has happened. And he gave me lots of good advice how to deal with the team dynamics, and just trying to understand the different strengths and the weaknesses within that team of shift bosses. And then he sort of gave me a hint of which two shift bosses I should target to get their points of view and to get their ideas about, how the section changes that we should make, and, what works and what doesn't work. And because there's a lot of pride in a lot of us that you do want to do it yourself, and you do want to show everybody that you can do it, there was still a lot of that in me, that I didn't want to ask for help. I wanted to prove this other mine overseer wrong, that I can do this job and I can do it well. But yeah, I took my pride and put it in my pocket, and I approached two of them, and we had a one-on-one conversations, and I asked them for help. I asked their input. I asked how they would structure this section, they would make changes, what they would do. And some very good ideas came out of that session. And I think it was the first time we started trusting one another. And I could see these two that were basically the two most senior in that team, and the respect they had from the other shift bosses was clear. And when I implemented their suggestions and gave them the credit for these suggestions, things really started turning around. I distinctly, before this session, I was called in by the general manager after we had another dismal performance for another month on safety production costs. And I said to him, I said to him, sir, I will, if this happens again, I will willingly resign. That's how committed I was. And I was quite emotional about it. And he said, no, I don't want you to resign. I just want you to fix it. Find out what the problem is and fix it, and see and know that I'm there to help you. And that was quite embarrassing, because I had a production manager or assistant GM, that was sort of more senior to me, and he was reporting to the GM. And so it was quite embarrassing that the GM called me in, because we had quite an important section to run. And he had this talk with me, and I realized, look, I'm in trouble here. The fact that the GM is talking to you about your section's performance. But he did it in such an awesome way. He was really a wonderful leader, in that it was never a command control. It's, guys, how can we help? What's not working? That sort of approach. And this was a discussion one-on-one in his office. And I took all the advice that I got from my team, and we started building a team, and we started building and getting to know each other, and strengthening, leveraging the strength of the team. And within a few months, we were the top performing team. And that resulted in my being promoted I was only a year mine overseer that I was promoted to an underground manager. And that's not to brag or just blow my own whistle here, or blow my own trumpet here. This is the result of obviously a team that was doing phenomenally well, and there was also a bit of luck and for good fortune in there that the mine needed an underground manager at that stage. And I had the qualification, I had the certificate, and so I was the only one there. So it was, not as if there was a lot of competition at the time in this smaller remote mine. But it was also a period of, learning my capability of dealing with a more senior group of people that have got, families that are well established, and they've got children, and they have their own lives. And it was a wonderful learning for me in so many ways. One of the things that, and this is the last little bit of this conversation that we'll finish off for today. One of the things that I learned there, because it was such a small community, that, drawing the line between work and social time was very difficult for a lot of people. And I distinctly remember that one of my colleagues as a mine overseer, he was fantastic in his day-to-day job. He was really good there. But there was a lot of cracks in his personality when he was not at the mine and he was socializing back at town. And really back at town was like, really we were in a remote area. So the town was next door to the mine. So you live in this very closed community and there's no hiding. So if you are emotionally, not mature and doing well, and you lose that in the community, that, comes straight back to the mine, and people lose a lot of respect for you. And during these two fatalities that I experienced and I was part of, my boat was rocked in terms of emotional, the emotional turmoil that one goes through, and you ask yourself difficult questions, and how could you have done things differently? And these are families that are involved, and you stand next to the grave. You have to look the family in the eye. You have to apologize on behalf of the mine, apologize on, you have to go through this very traumatic experience as an individual. And then you first time really realized, the extent of this legal appointment that you carry. And it's massive responsibility. It's a lot of people that rely on your leadership and your enablement to make sure they've got a safe environment to operate in with every day. And a lot of my own cracks started surfacing, and I realized there was a lot of help that I needed. And I did go for therapy and counseling, whatever you want to call it, to deal with it. And it was great to acknowledge the fact that I also had my own breakdown, if you want to call it that, emotional breakdown. And I remember distinctly saying to my wife, I don't know if this mining thing is for me. I'm now a mining engineer, but I don't know if I can do this for the rest of my life. This is extremely hard. This is a lot of pressure. This is a lot. But I got through that through the right sort of support, and that's really what I want to close off with is it's normal in mining to be under extreme pressure. It's normal to be in mining to have a lot of safety, production, issues that come up all the time, and you have to fix everything. You are Mr. or Mrs. Fix It, and everybody rely on you to do it. And you don't have to do it alone. You can raise the hand, and I would really want to motivate you today to say, make sure you look after your emotional health. Make sure you look after yourself and your family. And when you feel you're no longer coping, that's way deep, too deep already. you should see the warning signs before the time, and you should respond to those. So, but that's quite a heavy note to finish off on. Next week, we're going to cover quite a lot more on, call it the positive side of things, and when things started really turning for me in terms of getting results back and getting growing more, learning more. And I'm really excited about next week will be the final podcast on my career. And then we're going to have some guests coming to us and speaking to us, telling us their stories about their learnings and how they have progressed through all the ranks. And they will share with us so that we can learn from them. I am so glad that you have listened through all of this today. Thank you for still being there. And thank you. Have a wonderful time. Happy mining. Enjoy the rest of your day.